Live from the Rob Christensen Radio Network Satellite Studio, it's Jim and Rob Overanalyze the Movies. Hello, everybody. Let's take this down. We're live. Another episode of Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies, the podcast for movie lovers who love to talk about movies as much as they love watching them. Thank you again for joining us. Tonight, we're going to be taking a look at Netflix. Let me just pull up the Netflix original, A Futile and Stupid Gesture. I even wrote, can I find it for the life of me? No, but I did write what I thought was a lot more accurate log line than the BS they gave us. Let me see if I can't find it. Hi, here we are. A Futile and Stupid Gesture tells the tale of the rise and fall of comic genius Doug Kenney, co-founder of National Lampoon and one of the great influences on comedy and the pop culture of the 70s. I saw the movie. Jim has seen the movie. And now let's just, we'll give you a quick synopsis and then let's get Jim on the stream and see who's here and let's get everyone's take on it.
What if you say, I was the man who changed comedy forever, but I couldn't change myself?
Really? Blow me.
A Futile and Stupid Gesture opens with a very short scene set in the early 50s, alluding to a less than awesome childhood for our tragic hero, Doug Kenney. We then jump several years to Harvard University, and the moment where Doug, now and for the rest of the film played by Will Forte, meets Henry Beard, played by Domhnall Gleeson in a terrible wig. Henry is Doug's first creative partner and future co-creator of National Lampoon. This is also the first of several times we hear Doug introduce himself as Doug Kenney, Chagrin Falls, Ohio. The film jumps another 4 years to the Harvard Lampoon's official clubhouse, where Doug and Henry, along with a bevy of super waspy fellow students, are celebrating their latest and final coup at the club. The launch of Bored with the Rings, Harvard Lampoon's ridiculously successful parody of the Lord of the Rings fantasy books. This is where Doug meets his soon-to-be first wife, Alex, played by Camille Gotti. We start getting the idea that Doug might not be the most reliable person. and that Doug thinks Henry is the real brains and talent of their comedy duo. Doug's a little insecure. Which leads us to the founding of the magazine, and that it came about in large part because Doug didn't want to get a real job, further his studies, or split up with his best buddy Henry, who would have otherwise went to law school. So he convinces Henry to give starting a humor magazine a shot. After a funny series of failed pitches to Time Life and the like, they end up in the offices of Weight Watchers magazine and its publisher Matty Simmons, played by Matt Walsh, and National Lampoon is born. The rest of the first act is spent introducing us to some of the key early writers at National Lampoon, letting us know that Doug did marry Alex, that creative people in New York in the 70s drank a lot and did a fair bit of drugs, and that after a terrible first issue, National Lampoon and Doug's career began to really take off. The rest of the film follows this ever-growing success, along with Doug's growing insecurities, failed home and work marriages, and a lot more drinking and drugs, not to mention the concomitant consequences. It is a movie about Doug's rise and fall, you know.
Let's do this. This is for the magazine, right?
Well, there we go. That's the movie we're going to take a look at tonight. Now let me join me in welcoming my good friend, co-host, and I don't even think he's a Yaley, but we'll find out. Mr. Oh, if I can find my mouse. Come on, today. I'm having technical difficulties. Oh, there we go. Well, I thought it was. Son of a... I think I may have to... Oh, okay, there we are. Oh, for crying out loud. Oh, this is terrible. Ah, there we are. Mr. Jim Cholboyko.
Woo! That was good. That was...
I'm very sorry.
Real
all
tension.
And sundry.
And I'm definitely not wearing a wig. Hello, hello.
No?
How's it going?
Hello.
So
You're still here, right? I'm
yeah,
good.
oh yeah. No, still here. I'm in the tanning booth with my lighting rig, brought to you by Christensen Productions, a valued sponsor of Jim and Rob overanalyze movies for the last 6 months.
Well, you know what? It is our 15th episode, Jim.
It is, eh? Wow, that's well, when we started, I was wearing like
14 movies.
I thought my getup, and this is speaking to the early days of COVID. I thought my theater critics getup would be a turtleneck with tweed and a hat because I hadn't had a haircut in 3 months. And we now are in the middle of summer and the days are getting shorter. So that speaks to the longevity of this project so far. So.
Yeah, well, we've done pretty
can't hear
well.
You. Oh yeah,
well,
there
listen, why don't we?
Yeah.
Listen, why don't we? And you seem to be cutting in and out a little too on my end, Jim. So I suspect it's either StreamYard or the internet. But meanwhile, why don't we just? We'll either blame StreamYard or YouTube. But why don't we? First of all, we've got a few people already in the chat. Let's welcome them before we get started. Yes, we do. First of all, Ahmed from Kuwait representing. I caught his stream earlier where he was doing Sega Genesis gaming, like real old school 2D stuff. So anyway, Jelly Duck, good to see you here.
Who else?
We got Richard and Katie. He's saying howdy, gents. Howdy, Richard. Oh, yo, bros.
Jameson.
Now, of course, I don't know, Jamie, I'm assuming you're a Community fan, because I got to admit, I'm thinking of Medved, or there's in the dorms, like we're talking Community, Blanket Fort Community, when before they moved into their apartment, Abed and Troy, and there was that neighbor Oh, I get wicked cold, bro.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Oh, everyone's saying hello to each other. That's because we have an awesome community here.
Yeah.
Speaking of communities. All right. Oh, my buddy Joshua in California. How are you doing, brother? I hope you and yours are staying healthy, staying inside or getting outside when it's safe. All right. I love this as well. Although I really wish, like, I kind of redid my whole setup, which is why, like, some of the green screen is not working out quite the way I would like it to. But thank you very much anyway, sir. Yes, rip Doug Kenney, although Martin Mull does a great ghost Doug Kenney, I thought. It is rad.
Good.
All right. Okay, so yeah, Jim, let's we've welcomed everyone. We got our folks in. Okay, before this should be no shocker, but before we get going, spoilers abound.
You bet.
Everyone, this is the time to feel free to chime in on your thoughts on what Jim and I are saying or your own thoughts on this film. But I'll now hand it over to my comrade, Mr. Jim Chloboyko. Well, first of all, Jim, are you a Yaley?
I am not a Yaley. I don't know what I would be. That's a very American thing. What would it be up here? A McGilly or a?
Yeah. What's the rivalry to U of T? Like.
Yeah.
Or is that even U of T even considered that big a deal compared to those even older schools? I don't know.
Carlton versus McGill, or I don't know. Name UBC versus Simon Fraser. It feels weird to have the acronym in there. You need the full name. So
yeah,
a Frasery versus I don't know.
Yeah. Hello, Simon.
yeah. I sort of like at the very start when they breaking the fourth wall and having all that kind of the ability to address the audience where they cop to the fact about 10 minutes in that there's essentially no African Americans in the movie, and they say, well, if it's any consolation, we didn't have any Jewish people either. I'm paraphrasing.
I can cue that scene up.
Oh, you got it.
If we want to jump to that, but I think that's maybe like I've got a note to myself when we go a little deeper to talk about the Bechdel test. Mm-hmm. Although while I'm mentioning it, for those I think Josh and those who didn't join us last stream, I might have ragged on the old guard a ton, and I did. But
70 million.
I still resent that not my money being
70.
spent. But what we can say about the old guard, as opposed to this film, is not only did the old guard pass the Bechdel test, really passed it, not just one brief scene where two women talk to each other about something, but it really was like in the spirit of the Bechdel test. And for those of you, Jim, do you want to describe for those of you who don't know what the Bechdel test is, to describe it to them?
I'm gonna fumble it badly, but it's where two women are on the screen at once and they are not talking about a man.
They are talking, but not about a man.
Yes. Yeah.
And they have to be named characters.
Oh yes. Okay.
Yeah,
that's right.
I think they both have to be like, hey, your character's in this movie, and you happen to be, and it's not about a man. Yeah.
So no Tom Cruise movies whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's a great bartender. Oh, I know he is. That kind of thing.
We got to give. Let's see how What's It does. You know what? I'm just gonna. For those who might be having a hard time hearing me, got to crank up the compression a little. What did you though? Anyway, somebody lost his jalapeno. What did you think of it, Jim? Like, what was your initial take?
So I still remember buying, I was a big fan of these types of magazines. I still was a fan of Mad Magazine. I thought it was pretty tight. Even it's not really publishing any new stuff any longer. This is a whole different ball game. They actually reference Mad Magazine. They say it's not Mad Magazine what we do, and it's not the New Yorker. So I actually, probably not in its heyday, but probably in the mid 80s, was old enough to buy it and understand part of it, the National Lampoon magazine itself. It was always a very, you're always, like most comedy, you're guaranteed a few laughs, pretty messy, pretty slapdash in areas, but it's a bit of a weirdos movie, and I'm a weirdo, so I liked it. It was my jam. Like, there's so many layers of casting in this, and then there's people from different shows, and there's references to Saturday Night Live, where Harold Ramis is an actual character on screen, the late great Harold Ramis. So that sort of
truly great.
Oh, true, yeah. That sort of fed me a little bit, and this kind of stuff, the comedy history of the 70s and 80s, right up my alley. But I acknowledge it sort of lost some energy by the third act, and then the last few minutes I thought Will Forte, I can usually take him in small doses. There's a lot of Will Forte in here. He does.
I thought he did well.
I thought he did really well.
Yeah.
And he really, he looks like him, and he had some of the same line deliveries that Will Forte usually does. I don't know if I'd say he's a chameleon. One of my favorite characters he did on Saturday Night Live was a kind of a crazed presidential candidate named Tim Calhoun, and he always had these ridiculous pledges and things like that. But he was his hair was slicked back.
I promise I will drain the Atlantic.
Yeah. And he sort of talked like Peter Lorre a little bit, but so like no charisma, and that kind of thing. But I thought he really disappeared into his role. I thought he had some chops. I thought there was a couple scenes where he returned after a hiatus, and he was looking around the table, everyone laughing, and there was a little bit of a touch where he's just sort of taking it in. So I thought he did a good job. Like I said, not a perfect movie. The wigs are horrible. It runs out of steam.
And Domhnall Gleeson's was like the...
Yeah.
Okay, is that a gag because he's being funny, or is it? No, that's what they're running with.
Yeah, but it might have been part of it. So a bit sloppy, but if you're into this kind of thing, it's for you. I'm a fan, so it's right up my alley.
Yeah. And I remember that dog cover too, Richard. And Jelly Duck, Ahmed, it would reward you to kind of dig back into some of that stuff and see how some of that comedy is still being done now. Mm-hmm. Like, there really is. And I didn't get it ready for... Or maybe I did, actually. I don't think I did. I'll put a link in the description. There's another trailer where they kind of do a 6 Degrees of Doug Kenney and describe like just how much influence that scene had on All the Way to 30 Rock, and just how it's kind of fascinating, and how it overlaps with things that you and I have become huge fans of. And I'm thinking of Community now, where there's these weird meta moments of you've got Joel McHale playing a way more positive Chevy Chase, but it's almost like there he is, and it's like, and from what I read, like, he looks almost maybe not as good as from what I read about how he really tried to help Doug Kenney. Like, I mean, they're probably snorting half of Mount Everness worth of cocaine, but that was the scene. Not to excuse everyone. Yeah, I even got a little choked up. It was quite misty. It's super, like, I was writing things down. I've gotten in the habit now, Jim, of writing stuff down.
Yeah, me too.
Before I watch the movie on what my expectations are. Okay. And one of the things was that kind of a rose-colored glasses, very nostalgic view of the 70s. And it was there, like, and not, but without being way over the top. It was super, like, reserved, subtle even. Like, I mean, especially given the subject matter, no over-the-topness, none of those things that just drive me nuts. No screeching, no ultimatums, no super-duper 70s soundtrack, although some of it was there. Or what I would say, covers of 70s soundtrack. Because I'm not even, because there's a part of me kind of going, the soundtrack isn't what you'd expect out of this kind of movie. Like it has a style of, but no, I was in general very happy. It does have some problems, but some of it, kind of like what you're talking about, is this just a deep cut reference like the Bad Wigs or screw it, we're all comics? Because it really did feel like this, maybe not a passion project for one person, but a bunch of people are going, of course I want to be part of that. I, as a comic or a comic actor or a improv actor, these guys were my heroes, these guys, and let us underline guys.
Yes.
But they couldn't have Ann Betts and Gilda Radner just a couple of lines about something other than no.
Well, and
this is Doug Kenney's story, but it was, I did like it. At the end I was a little choked up. It is, and I'd even go deeper, Jim, to say, like, I mean, some aspects were really realistic. Emmy Rossum as Catherine Walker, like, I mean, okay, partly has she just been, every role she's in, she brings an adult, like an adult kind of presence. Yeah. Like at no time have I ever thought her, and she was like a kid, a teenager when she was in, what was that, 2012 or no, the ice one where everything got frozen.
Oh,
the day after tomorrow. Yeah. Why not the day after tomorrow?
Yes.
We've got a shift at the McDonald's.
There's a certain.
You're absolutely right, Ahmed. But I don't think any of them looked like who they were supposed to be.
and they address that too. I mean, and they do a good job. You have Seth Green playing Christopher Guest, and Seth Green is not a large. I think he's under 5.5 feet, and I believe Chris Guest is pretty tall. Like he's married to Jamie Lee Curtis, and she's pretty tall as well. So anyway, but so that might have been even just a little more of that piss taking, or that sort of not stunt casting, but sort of like everything's a gag, almost like the dialogue. Everything, call me a cab. You're a cab, and that kind of thing.
Comedies first. Yes. Well, now coming to this, Ahmed, you know what? It could have been like it is. Yeah, no one really did. Like it was like, okay, well, you kind of, buddy, who they got playing, not Harold Ramis, but Ivan Reitman, who was on 30 Rock.
Lonnie
it was
Ross.
Like, pardon? Who?
Lonnie Ross.
Thank you.
Josh.
It's like, you don't look. I'm not thinking of Ivan Reitman.
No, take it if you can get a side by side. That it was good casting.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's.
I stand corrected. Yeah. I just, you know what? I'm wondering, and this is just something to think about. Yeah. Let me just finish my thought, or I sort of got to lose it.
Go ahead.
I'm wondering if some of the casting was, or most of the casting, they weren't like, it is a biopic, like it fit in this slice of life biography genre kind of thing, but that they were like, here, give us the spirit of this person. Yeah. We're not gonna, kind of like Death of Stalin, I mean, other than the bald head, which was a cool gig, what's his name does not look like Nikita Khrushchev, like
was it
in any way. Yeah, Steve Buscemi. So it could have been literally they're just saying, screw it, you know what, we're gonna go for people that we like who will give us the spirit. So that might have been part of Ahmed. Richard chimes in. I enjoyed the movie. What was neat is that it was aimed at a general audience who wouldn't really know who Doug Kenney was or why they should care. That's a great point. But I'm also wondering, Richard, again, I'll find that link and maybe I'll just put it in the chat actually, Netflix kind of, I think, knew that, their marketers knew that, and they did a great little short video on why this is Doug Kenney. This is the greatest comic you will never know. The greatest comic you've never heard of. And this is why you should have heard of him. So that's a great point. And I think Netflix really did understand, are we making a movie about somebody no one will have ever heard of? And he died young. He was 33.
Yeah.
He, to quote, and that's a real quote. It was in the movie, but it's a real quote. That whole, he slipped on his way to find a place to jump from, you know, which is a good bit. Yep. Yeah. Ed Helms. Yeah. It had a huge, a crazy cast. I think it is. It's like Joel McHale, Thomas Lennon, John Gemberling, Matt Walsh, Rick Glassman, all these people you'll recognize. John Daly, Seth Green, Martin Mull, of course, Natasha Lyonne, and so many others. It was just crazy, the cast they had. And at the same time, no one's going, or didn't look like, I want to be the star now.
Yeah.
Where's it very was, it was kind of fascinating that way. Was there any particular scenes or lines that really kind of stood out to you?
It was I don't know if you could even say it was a theme, but it came up several times during the movie. The whole notion of the bit. I'm putting quotes around the bit. Is this a bit?
And asking, are we doing a bit? Is this a bit? What is the bit?
You're really
this is not a bit.
And that sort of like a little sort of bouncy ball sort of made its way through the movie. Every 20 minutes or so, he at one point Doug leaves the magazine because he's losing it, and he says, I got to get out of here. I'm losing it.
Oh, the man in the sky is coming after me. Yeah,
and then on the flip side of the note, it says,
at the time.
Yeah, and on the flip side of the note, it says, "This isn't a bit."
Yeah.
So the notion of the bit is kind of an interesting thing. In terms of specific scenes, I mean, there was. I mean, we've spoken a lot about before about movies that move too quickly and cover a lot of ground. I mean, in a way, I think they did try to cover a lot of ground with this. I think there were some good scenes. I would have liked it to breathe a little bit more, but certain things like Joel McHale when they're having an awkward family discussion at the Kenney senior household, and he's going to go pour himself a drink, and he does that clumsy Chevy Chase thing and basically knocks down the whole liquor cabinet. That's what he did. I was going to say, that's not I don't think that was a scene breathing thing. And yes, I'm still here. I'm just, but just in terms of little sort of little notions and stuff, there's lots of that kind of thing throughout this whole movie. But it comes at you fairly quickly. We discussed the two African American people who came up and said, "Hey,
let's try that again."
Where are all the African Americans? That one of those was Chris Redd, who's currently on the current cast of Saturday Night Live, and so you spot. I was looking for Easter eggs and all kinds of things, but let's
talk about the. Oh, okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say the energy of the office I sort of liked. They had a sequence. This isn't a movie that necessarily breathed a lot, but. They did neat things like that ongoing. There was a little bit of a series of Matt, the manager, the good housekeeping, the financier, basically. Yeah. And he would just say, "The Catholics are after us. The Mormons are after us. We're being sued by Volkswagen. Yeah. The Nazis are after us." Oh, no, wait.
Volkswagen. Oh, and that Volkswagen bit, it's like... Kennedy would have been president. Oh, they were dark.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and maybe this is a good time, you know what, to talk about the Bechdel test and some of the problematic. What I would say, it's a super sweet movie and very nostalgic. But I think some of it was a little problematic. Like, now some of it they do address head on, and I actually so everyone, I'm going to show a quick piece of a scene where they kind of like, first of all, it's Martin Mull. Martin Mull is this, for those who haven't seen it, he's playing this, well, literally a self-described narrative device. He is Doug Kenney if he had lived. The older Doug Kenney, the Doug Kenney of now, if he had not, probably killed himself, likely killed himself. That said, he kind of says, hey, there were a lot of great writers in this big crowd, but it's like, hey, we could only really fit 4, so get lost, in a big long list. And you even recognize, John Hughes is in that list, and. And well, you know what? First, let me put up the, let's see if I can't, where the hell's that scene? I know I pulled it up. Oh, for crying out loud. No. I might have, okay, you know what? I'm going to have to upload this bit of nonsense then, and then we'll come back to this. So we're going to have to wait until it uploads. But in the meantime, Jim, what about any particular performances? Like I think Will Forte did an outstanding job, and you're right. Like, Will Forte can be grating after a while, like a small doses guy. Yeah. But here, after a while, I was really kind of feeling for the Doug Kenney character. Mm-hmm. Was there any other performances that you're going, wow, that really worked?
There wasn't a lot of people that had lots of time. I did like, despite the wig, I did like Domhnall Gleeson, if I'm pronouncing his first name correctly. He actually, because I'm so used to seeing him with red hair, of course, I actually looked it up. I like, who's playing Henry Beard? And I was like, oh, of course, we're in a wig. But I totally didn't recognize him at first.
Terrible rig.
Yeah. They all were. Like the Joel McHale's Chevy Chase's wig were just got more and more progressively ridiculous. And I think they even
obvious. Buddy
had a fat shirt on or something, or not a fat, but a muscly shirt or something. Like his top seemed like he seemed kind of.
They were buffing him up a bit.
A little bit, yeah. But
what about I can't remember the actor's name right now. Sure. He was the studio executive.
Oh,
played in he's got a role he's one of the regulars on Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yes. His Italian name, and let me just anyway, what were you going to say? I'll look it up while you're talking.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think he plays, no, he can't be playing Peter Ivers. But anyway, that was another terrible wig that's obviously, poke you in the eye terrible. So, the more I think about it, if we scan through it again, it's like wig. That's obviously their gag. The wig is their jam.
Yeah, I think so.
It was a dark joke, man. Yeah.
I can't find it. Oh, Joe Lo Truglio. Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Yeah, and he did a great job. Without, and it's funny actually, for a bunch of comics, they kind of on one level over the top, but at the same time never trying to. I'm gonna make this guy even crazier. There didn't seem to be a desire. They wanted almost like a softer, a lower arc. There was, and at times I really thought it's like, wow, they're really playing these relationships a little more realistically than you usually see. At no time, in his relationships, no one gives him an ultimatum. He never gets an ultimatum. People deal with their relationships in the same effed up way you and I do. Like, I don't mean just you, Jim, and me, Rob, but that kind of not really dealing with it, kind of looking off to the other side and kind of, oh, well, let's just keep plugging away. But then when they do, his wife leaves him. No, you have to, when Henry Beard leaves Lampoon in one of the best lines in the whole movie. Good luck. fuck you, goodbye.
Yes. Yeah.
And then he just walks out. And it was like actually, I suspect he may have said something like that, but he definitely did. It's like, yeah, it's not funny anymore. I'm going. Not, some weird, oh, you have to clean up. You've said you'd clean up for years, even his, probable drug addiction, his alcohol abuse and everything. They didn't do any of those standard, didn't play the standard tropes. And yes, you know what? I do want to talk about this because it's kind of one of the weirdest sort of what moments. But here's life to art repeating, playing life, because it's interesting. It seemed to me that the way they had drawn the Chevy Chase character and his relationship to Doug was Chevy Chase who was always trying to help Doug. He was trying to help him out, hook him up to Saturday Night Live, maybe. He just seemed to be a bit of a real friend to Doug Kenney, or at least the way they were presenting him. Yeah. And there's Joel McHale playing Chevy Chase. While in his real life and community, he keeps trying to do a solid for Dan Harmon, getting him rehired on the show. And what's one of the bones of contention? Chevy Chase. Yeah. Which kind of it's like, wait, what? Is this what I'm watching?
Pretty mind-blowing.
Did Joel McHale take this job to kind of go, no, we're still cool, Chevy? I don't know.
Well, I thought when I read the casting, I thought, oh, he's going to savage him, but he really didn't. I thought he's just going to, because there's stories of the mythical fist fight between Bill Murray and Chevy Chase, that kind of thing, and
none of them were savaged, and you can see that in all the thank yous at the very end of the credits, where it's like half these people. Bill Murray was thanked, Henry Beard was thanked, and Beatty or Ann Beats. Was thanked. Natasha Lyonne played her. Let's get back to the thing. I finally uploaded. I'm going to, and then I'll get into my rant about the Bechdel test fail. Again, to everyone who's watching, this is where the movie acknowledges some of the gender and race issues that are deeply and disturbingly obvious.
Maybe if one of you had been black, we could have included you.
So there were no funny black writers in the 70s?
And just one funny woman.
Oh, I'm sure they were out there. It's just that we didn't think to look. It was a different time. In our defense, we also had very few Jews.
Which, now, you know what? It's a good bit, and there is some, I gotta admit, if you're writing the slice of life biopic, it's really difficult, especially when it's like, no one's gonna come out of this with egg on their face. It's obviously a choice they made in developing it. It's like, we're not making anyone look bad. Even some of the worst behavior, we're still gonna kind of, but he was cool. She was all right. And that's fine. That's certainly a reasonable choice. But here's where I'd say, you know what? Sure, you can't really do much about the past. And yes, I suspect they were all, kind of very 70s New York hippie liberal, sort of, oh, well, of course I'm not racist. I've never, meanwhile, it's like, oh, they're all Harvard alums. Which means they're all white. They're all Protestant. They're all he says, we should hire some women. Yaley? It's like, wow, that's, but I'd say, and I did take the deep dive. I'm like, the director's guy. The writers are guys. The cinematographer's a guy. Yes, the costume designer's a woman. Well, most costume designers are women. We're not really, it's like, so that it's almost like, well, we get a pass. We acknowledged it. It's like, you can't change the past, but really there's no funny black writers now that could have helped you write the movie, or no black or women cinematographers that,
It's almost like
I'm
a
not
war
saying
movie.
that would guarantee you a good result. Again, in some ways, the what do they call it? The reframe certification. In some ways, it says, hey, you know what? You do these. You try to hire this way. It's about fairness and economic justice. It's not about the quality of the film, there's it's like no one could have brightly lit. Like you look at the cinematography, it is straight up. It's like lots of light because you'll almost always have a lot of people in the scene. They're not. It's all comedy lighting. They're all just going to go for the joke first anyway. They're not going to worry about too much about other things.
And that blanched out kind of 70s look. Even their
with the earth
shared
tones.
Yeah, their shared apartment in New York was a little brighter than I think most New York apartments are, but
looked very 70s.
Yeah. But
at least it looked a little smaller than a friend's apartment.
Yeah, that's true.
It did have a little bit of snugness.
Well, you got to fit the studio audience into that one. And you have to say, you can say, well, there weren't any black writers or whatever. This is a movie that implies.
I did like the bit. Well, we just didn't. Like it was a good bit. Like there were no
How do we get around this
funny black
days?
Writers.
Yeah.
We didn't think to look, but that wouldn't stop them now to look for other ways of involving, some diversity. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
In a movie where you're it's not just the unreliable narrator; it's the non-existent narrator. Like literally, it's 70-year-old Doug Kenney who doesn't exist and doesn't ever exist, really. And when you're playing things like that, you can probably throw different groups of people a few more bones anyway.
Yeah. But it's like I said, it's not. I get they're acknowledging it. They're acknowledging it in a way that keeps in the spirit of the rest of the film. It's like, they're all pretty. You can't call them racist, but they were bigoted. Like probably not in any conscious. I don't like. It's just it's like why would I think of that? Why And I get it, and especially as they made the choice that everyone's going to come out of this not looking like an a-hole. Which is also a reasonable creative choice, and it gives a nice vibe to the film. I'm more saying it's like, okay, you've acknowledged that. There's other ways you can do it because it's today. It's today where two middle-aged white guys can note it.
Exactly.
And that's not like the bar is pretty low if we're kind of going, that's a little odd, But again, I can't say it's a quibble. It is something worthy of discussion of the film, when we're talking about the film. But that doesn't mean it's like, into the trash bin with it. Because I would still say this is one of the best films. In the 14 films we've now reviewed, Jim, this is maybe not to say it's the best, but it could be like...
Yeah.
Blood Quantum was pretty effing good. I'm going
to have to, I haven't done this yet, but I'm going to have to make a little database myself because I know we refer to past movies we watched and things like that. And not too long ago, of course, we watched Strange Brew, which has a lot of Canadian comedy, a lot of Canadian comedy history in it as well. So, it's... it was pretty good. I was going to mention that when you mentioned the breakup with the wife... We're going to
put a pin on this, Ahmed. We're going to put a pin in this. Because, I want to talk about Animal House and Caddyshack, two of the films that were... So, we'll come back to this, Ahmed. Sorry, Jim. Sorry to interrupt.
When he broke up with the wife, they did it... The film uses a lot of neat methods. They used the comic book or the I don't know what you would call it, but it was like a magazine, illustrated magazine story with thought balloons, word balloons and things like that to describe their breakup.
John Aboud, because now all of a sudden I'm like, what if I'm being one of those jerks? It's like, oh no, that is a very, very white man.
Okay,
and his partner is very, very white. Oh, and he's John Aboud the third.
Oh, there you go. Not too many.
Yeah, and education, Douglas Southall, Freeman High, and Harvard University. And this is, okay, you know what, kind of skipping back a bit, there's a part of me is like kind of, is this a bit of a subtle sort of, boy, it was good back in those days, it was just drugs and, hitting on women's stuff and, pretty much getting away with everything. No one hassled us. It was a different time, because there's a bit of a, like, it's too nerdy to go bro. Like they're just too nerdy. But, it's a little, oh, yes. See, Richard agrees with us as well. Yeah, it is. It's a kind of got a sweetness. And this is where I cut out a lot of slack, because it does have a sweetness to it, eh? Like, I'm sorry, Jim, we kind of, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say for the folks out there, Rob and I chose this because we wanted to choose something lighter. So we ended up choosing a story about a man's eventual suicide. Yeah. Anyway, but
it still was
potential suicide.
I thought it still had kind of a nice.
And in terms of nostalgia, there's not a lot of there aren't a lot of movies out there that when somebody's drunk or somebody's high, where it's, even if they try not to romanticize it, they still sort of romanticize it. And I felt they didn't do this here. I felt that scene when he breaks into the Caddyshack, not breaks into, but he stumbles drunkenly into the
crashes his own press conference,
Caddyshack
and acts
press
like an
junket.
asshole. Yeah.
And that was more sad than he wasn't a funny drunk, and he wasn't a charming drunk. He was a troubled guy.
Or a dramatic drunk either. Like, we must rescue. That, exactly. It was, a sad guy. Somebody, you see people being, I felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's
so, go ahead.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
I was just going to say that it's hard to, not a lot of movies, a lot of movies fail to not romanticize it. Is that anyway? There's a lot of, to quote the movie, that's a lot of negatives. But which was another good line.
They're also because they're also English major wordy types. Yeah.
Harvard. He goes, oh, that's a lot of negatives, and then Chevy Chase says, "I don't disagree." So anyway, but it didn't. I felt it didn't romanticize addiction at all, and it made it actually. There were moments you could see where he was fleeing something or trying to fill the hole or deal with it. There was an emptiness
to him. Joke his way through it. He was. And now I want to see if I could, because one of the things I wrote down afterwards, and as I was kind of working through this, getting ready for tonight, I was like kind of, you know what? This is actually one of the best presentations of how depression actually works. Mm-hmm. How he can be functional for a while, and then all of a sudden it's a little off. A lot of never really, and this, I want to kind of hook this into the unreliable narrator, because there's a piece of it where, and it's only near the end, where you're kind of going, wait a sec, there's something really subtle going on here, but I think it's on purpose. Mm-hmm. Was the you can tell, like, even though he's down on himself, he's forever kind of, chagrin. And I looked up chagrin, and it's humiliated, embarrassed and humiliated, the core of the definition of chagrin. And he forever uses that. It's always like he's apologizing where he's coming from. There's these little moments where he's remembering his crappy childhood, etc. But at the end, and this is where it kind of hooks into that unreliable narrator, like at the end where his father's crying and is like, he was so loved. And you see these people who are like kind of, okay, he's been here for weeks, but it's, they love him. They're doing their best. Everyone's kind of doing their best for somebody they love, and he doesn't see it. Mm-hmm. He doesn't really he's one of the great lines. I wrote it to just a sec, Jim. I'll find it. I swear to you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, where was it? Late in, and she really, by then, like, I really did kind of track this as a tragedy, like a comic tragedy, but a tragedy nonetheless. It had a lot of that kind of, the frustration act, the nightmare portion, and then, the denouement. But yeah, he's already done, and where is it? For crying out loud. For crying out loud.
I'll just do some club dancing over here.
Yeah, no. do what you need to do, man.
I got my light.
Fuck a duck. Pardon my poor language.
So just while you're doing that,
but at the end, she's like, kind of, Doug, in what world are you not successful?
Yes,
and she's and it is like she, I'm not. Emmy Rossum has played comic roles. She is a comic actor, but probably the one who's done the most. Also drama and, but she just delivers that line. And again, as an adult, again, she's not some, nurturer who's like destroying her own career to keep him. She's a grown adult woman at this time where she's like, well, no, I have work I have to go do, but I fly in. Where's Chevy? And she's asking him adult questions saying, listen, do you want to get better? If you can't talk to me, talk to someone, and he's using the same dodges he was using at the beginning. I'm not really good at this, talking about my feelings. It's like, and I can't go back unless I've got a success. And she's like, I can't go back, a failure or whatever. In what world are you a failure? And that was the quote. It was just a beautiful, real moment. But and again, a real understanding, because like to him, I don't think he at no time now, mind you, and this is very of the time, is he actually kind of going, oh, I need, because I'm not going to shrink and talk about my parents and, even that, that constant looking back at his childhood and that, and it's like, yeah, you might have some a little less drugs. Mm-hmm. And then a different drug, an antidepressant, there's, but it seemed to have a subtle kind of, he's an unreliable narrator thinking he's this bad guy, even though all these people are putting up with his crap because they love him. Mm-hmm. At the end, they're all there. People don't make these many jokes and get involved and support a project like this unless they go, you know what, I love Doug. Doug was a great guy. You know what? He had his problems, but he was a great guy. Shit husband, shit work husband, but a good guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are you buying any of that?
Oh, yeah. No, it's and in terms of they really look.
Adjust my.
Sure, yeah. They really look to the leadership of Doug and Henry, the two leads, I'd say. And first Henry takes off, then Doug takes off. I actually looked it up because I didn't know the recent history of National Lampoon, but it was publishing apparently until 1998. And I had assumed that it had
really
flamed out. Yeah, and now I don't know if that's a once-a-year schedule or if it went to quarterly or if it was still monthly. But so when I was reading it, I think it had just passed its heyday. I think that's, magazines back then.
Everyone has... Oh, go
Spy.
ahead.
Yeah. Well, there was Spy that was out, was great.
Cracked,
crazy,
was still around.
Yeah. But National Lampoon had its heyday, and it had its still famous covers. There was even
Cracked. Cracked became a brand that got sold to an online operation. It's had a whole second life online.
Yeah. I know you.
Sorry.
No, you've steered me
I'm a
to.
Big fan.
Yeah. But even things like there was a movie magazine that I remember reading, just stumbling onto
Jelly
it.
Duck did the research.
Yeah.
Hooked us up. Thank you very much, sir.
But Premiere Magazine was a great magazine when it first came out, like a real movie lovers magazine. When you find that when you're 16, 17 years old, you're like, oh my God, like I'm a guy who used to go to the reference section in the library to look up movie information. So I could sort of triangulate with the late show on CKND to see, what was worth watching and that sort of thing. But so that's the depth of my neuroses or whatever. Where was I heading with this?
I don't know.
I'm
looking at my notes while you're going, so we're both, it's dead air, Jim.
Yeah.
We have dead air.
For 20 minutes. For
the love of God.
I was talking about the leadership. So yeah, it did have its rise. It did have its sort of gradual fall. I don't remember picking up a copy past, say, 1985 or 1986. But it was very American. It was very dirty. Not sort of like Penthouse dirty, but it was pretty nasty, like on the they show it on the movie.
But it was a little. But it was a little real. Like what I kind of liked about some of their dirty, it's like that's an actual live woman, not a porn star, not a,
Yeah. No, it's.
Here I am critiquing the nudity and.
There's a couple. Well, there's the Will Forte flash of nudity that I could have avoided, but anyway, you can't unring that bell.
That was a great bit.
Yeah, it looks good, doesn't it?
That's why I loved. That's why I loved the end of they cut that when I was cutting the. I had to mix a few things for the trailer / synopsis.
Yeah.
But I was like, I can't cut that out. I can't have my blah blah blah. It's for the magazine, isn't it?
And there was some nudity in the trailer, so we've officially gone, I think, a red band here. But anyway.
Yes, there was a whole tuchus and like 6 breasts.
Yes, yeah.
I think we'll manage. I never put it as like a little taste for future folks. Actually, going to be doing an interview with a local independent director. And I was saying to that individual, listen, I might get swearing if we talk about this subject. And I go, we're not a family show.
Yeah. No, I mean, I try to keep the swearing down, but it sometimes slips out. But
exactly, well, you know what? We're shooting at 9:30 p.m. on a Monday night. This is not exactly quick, honey. Get the kids. Jim and Rob are on.
Exactly. So here's what I want to. This is the one of the questions that I'm sorry, I'm springing this on you a little bit.
Yeah.
So we talk, and you talk with friends, and you see it on. There was an article out this past week that 10 of the top 10 Netflix movies are, they're not exactly, Hamlet or King Lear, that kind of thing. So this is a Netflix production. And I know there's different grades of Netflix productions where they throw some money, where they have a partial thing, where it's already been made and they just, I guess, retain
where they blew
North
$70
American
million
rights
on a $20 million film.
Exactly.
Yes.
So when somebody says it's a Netflix movie.
Thanks, Ahmed.
When somebody says that it's a Netflix movie, what does that, and I was thinking about this all weekend, Old Guard being a Netflix movie, which we reviewed last week, what does that mean to you?
That's a great question. I think I can give you a good answer, but I also want to, you know what? This is also a great question for the folks out there watching right now. Mm-hmm. And if you pick this up later, feel free to put something down in the comments, and maybe this is something we can even dive deeper into later. But to your question, and it's funny you asked this, Jim, because I've been thinking about this too, partly just because of this project, right? We start to kind of go, I can't, in a lot of ways, Netflix is... I think of it as disposable entertainment, a consumable entertainment. I don't think at any time Netflix is going, oh, we hope this sticks with people and meaning forever. But what within that, and disposable, that's too harsh a word. Consumable would be a better way to go.
It's content. Content provision.
Content. Let's talk about it in food terms. You know what? They're giving you some pretty good, not an Applebee's meal, Moxie's. It's got some style. It's pretty good value for money. Pretty predictable. Like, I mean, they're they're not. I mean, they do have, let's say, a Applebee's outlet, which is the reality nonsense, or maybe not. Let's say Netflix, or if Moxie's also did drive-through. We have a drive-through menu now. Well, that's their reality nonsense, But I would say it's kind of like a Moxie's. You're never, or let's say it's a happy accident when you come out of a Moxie's going, wow, I'm going to remember. I want to keep this taste in my mouth all night.
Yeah.
I'm not going to eat tomorrow. I just want to savor this. That doesn't mean it's not a well-made. Like, I mean, it's not that it doesn't mean that it isn't well made, that it doesn't taste good, it isn't using fresh ingredients. Like, I mean, you know, it's not all coming off off of a Cisco truck. Like, I mean, they're really making food back there. But it's, you know, yeah, I would say it's a Moxie's. It's kind of a, you know, casual, let's say upscale casual dining for, you know, but it's not. HBO is a different thing entirely. I don't see Netflix ever making Chernobyl. Like, you know, I don't see them ever, or I shouldn't say ever. I think right now, if they came out with a Chernobyl tomorrow, I'd go, wow, I did not expect this from my Moxies. I expected this from some hipster joint or Highs. Yeah, again, sticking to this, you know, like HBO's a bit of a chain brand kind of thing too. So that's Highs, you know. You're downtown, you're having a killer steak, and it's very classic steakhouse, but you know, you're getting a top tier meal. You're getting a meal that you may want to stick with, you know, for a bit. That's Netflix to me. I'm not, and that goes all the way through the operation. It's gonna have a certain look. It's gonna have, you know what? Where Richard's got a comment, but let me just finish before we get to Richard's comment. His definition. It's gonna have a certain look. It's gonna have that sort of, you know what I would call. Let me get my geeky techie hat on. It's gonna look like it was shot on red, on a shot on a red camera. One of my criticisms of, you know, the old guards, like, it didn't have a look. It had a very industrial, shot well, but no art to it. Yeah, you know. Yeah. Although I think this one had a bit more feature color grading, and like they put a little more effort, and
the production design was pretty neat too. I enjoyed some of the sets, and you know, just some of the stuff was cool. Yeah. And
well, here, let's go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Here, let's see what Richard has to say. You know, interesting question. Used to think of a Netflix movie like I would a TV movie. Oh, now you see them as somewhat higher. I agree as well. I'm sorry. Okay, Jim's got now I'm in this habit. Jim is a good pro tip. So Richard says, interesting question. Used to think of Netflix movie like I would a TV movie, but now I see them as somewhat higher quality, but still short of Criterion collection. Yeah. And I'm giving a little spin because I think Richard's having a little fun with that. I can almost hear his tone.
Yeah.
And yes, it was a good use of HBO for reference. I am not new at this now. I'm 3 months in. There 15 episodes, man. 14 movies.
85 more and we get into syndication.
Like, Jim, what about you? Like, what's been, when you think Netflix, what are you thinking? What's your definition?
For me, I guess it's not fair for me to ask the question, not to have an answer, but I guess I do have an answer. I'm trying to figure that out still. I mean, their TV, to differentiate from their TV series, different. I think there's a different feel to the series and the docu-series to the movies.
And depending on which series it is too, don't you think? Like, there's somewhere it's like, oh, you phoned this in. I loved The Witcher. Loved it.
Yeah.
Tried to watch it again. Didn't love it as much. But that first one, it's like, boy, this is great. This is not, yes, it's fast food, but it's like Hawkins Cheesy's fast food. The king of cheesies. Sorry, cut you off there.
No. It's
back to defining Netflix movies.
I should sort of watch a bunch in succession. I haven't watched, I do have an Amazon Prime account, and I haven't watched a lot of their original. I don't know if they do original movies. I've watched some of their shows, and I find them quite good. But yeah, I guess to me they seem like movies that aren't indies and that aren't necessarily those those higher end movies that the studios would come up with. You know, they sort of occupy this mid ground that if Netflix wasn't producing them, would they get made? You know, would there be somebody to step in and do that? And I'm not sure there would be, but yeah, they're sort of right in the middle of that, like that sort of, you know, up and coming kind of filmmaker versus the veteran filmmaker, and sort of right in the middle, kind of a, I don't know, is it, well, that's sort of a gross generalization because, you know, Spike Lee has done the Five Bloods and yeah, it's
that's
tricky.
true, and I haven't seen that yet. So, like, I mean, you know, you have though, correct?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen that one.
Okay. Well, we might have to.
Yeah.
Well, so it might be not the next week because we have a plan. Not the week after that, or even the week after that because we have a plan for that one. Yeah. But maybe. You know, listen, just to put it up on the screen so I don't forget, everyone, this is, and it's in the chat, this is a link to the Netflix kind of sort of why you should know Doug Kenney, and it's like just a nice little 1.5 2-minute trailer for the movie, which is really more about Doug Kenney without being history-ish. It really is actually, now here's, even as I'm kind of going, well, they're moxies, I gotta admit, some of their trailers really are like, that's smart. These are folks, now this is an area they really know, is how to, you know, as one of the first online services, they really know how to market online. They kind of get that it's like, hey, how do we keep people's attention those first few seconds before they go to someone else's stupid ad, you know, like how do we anyway, but it's a neat little one where it's like, this is Doug Kenney, might be the best comic, the best comedian you have never, the best comedy writer you have never heard of. This is Will Forte playing. You know, it's a nice bit.
I should say that I go ahead.
Netflix is like first home buyer or stock picker looking for that value find.
Yeah.
You know what? Yes, them, Amazon Prime. Yeah, they're definitely, but they're kind of, I think they need a little, there's other aggregators. Like the whole ecosystem's kind of fascinating, Richard. Like where it's, you know, sometimes it's Netflix saying, yes, we're buying that. Sometimes it's an aggregator who's bought rights to several, and then they're going, here, we'll sell you these 10, depending on its financing, et cetera. But yeah, you're right. Like it's a very good, you know, I'd even say the stock picker or the house flipper. That's, house flipper.
Yeah, get investor or whatever.
Yeah. Who is thinking that movie is brilliant? Billy Duck.
I was going to say, just in terms of the marketing thing.
Ahmed, just so you, I'm not 100% sure what you're talking about because at times I'm just not that bright. So you got to help me out here, brother. Go ahead. Sorry.
That Eurovision movie with Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams. I watched it with my wife the other day, and you know it's cute and everything. A lot of great shots of Iceland, and it doesn't, you know, small town in Iceland. A lot of great sort of breathtaking background scenery. And of course, Rachel McAdams manages to class up the joint. But in any case, there's a joke in the trailer.
Thank you, Ahmed. This is going to bug me otherwise. You're the man. Sorry.
There's a joke in the trailer that I laughed out loud at. That I was like, bah! and it wasn't in the movie. They had taken it out of the movie, and that anyway. So that was just one little thing, but. I mean,
now I'm gonna have to check the trailer out. I'm not necessarily. Well, you know what? We can talk about that movie or did you and your wife already see it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, we saw it last. So I didn't think it would be. I didn't think it would be up your alley, and we were looking for something to watch. But so I guess for me, they actually managed to have quite a wide variety of movies out there. You know, from anywhere from Roma to something like this, to The Old Guard, to that Chris Hemsworth star vehicle from earlier this year, the Five Bloods. What was Scorsese hadn't made a movie in a while because he couldn't get the funding? Was that the story behind The Irishman, or nobody would say yes to the 3.5 hour long movie?
I'm not 100% sure about that. Like, I never really dug deep in there. Well, and maybe that's something that we should. I wonder if that's something worthy. Well, here's my hot take on, like, his whole argument about Marvel. Was because it all came up at the same time, right? Like that's. But I really, my gut, I thought, and folks, those folks in the chat and everything, chime in on this one. But my gut told me when he was talking about that and cinema versus Marvel movies, the big tempo movie, was a lot of it was, it's like, well, my gut reaction, honestly, Jim, was, well, Marty, you can't get your movies in the theater anymore. And that's what you're mad about. Yeah. You know? And like, cause I definitely, I'm firmly of the belief that yes, a Marvel movie is not like, a Martin Scorsese movie, but it's not like, I mean, he was trying to make this distinction, I think, that it's like, oh, that's a bicycle and this is a car. Like, these, like, they're just so fundamentally different. They should be called different things. And I'm like, I don't know. Goes in the theater. I go and I watch it. They're actors. There's a story. And I mean, that's a gross oversimplification, but but you know what? Maybe this is a pin-worthy thing. Yeah. Because, first of all, only read excerpts of his piece. It definitely deserves, maybe one of these days when we do the, Jim, when we do better than The Old Guard, but maybe we do one of these bigger, these big spectacle movies, big superhero movies, that we can, maybe we do kind of split off and kind of go, okay, let's take a look at this and really kind of get at it. I'll see if I can't line up a cool guest for us to be on that as we look at it. That might be kind of cool. Let me ask you this, Jim. First of all, did you do any, for this movie, did you take a look at Caddyshack or did you take a look at Animal House before you watched it? What preparation did you do? Like,
I thumbed through some of the books that I have just to see if there's any connection there. I didn't watch those other two movies, and I sort of, and we've said this before, anytime you watch one of the movies that we select, you could probably watch about 5 other companion pieces just to inform yourself as well. Like, it sort of doesn't, it's like the Kevin Bacon thing. Like, you just try to cover all these bases, right? And you can probably
you can't.
Crazy
we've
with
got
that,
a week.
but,
we don't have time for a mega deep dive. Yeah.
But it would be cool to sort of key in on this. I'm still, blown away by the fact that they have another actor playing Tim Matheson and John Belushi and all these other guys. Like, it's such a mind blow that actors who were working actors when we were young are fictional versions of themselves in this. It was kind of one of the delights of the movie, actually. But I hadn't, anyway, to answer your long answer to your question, but I hadn't watched this weekend. But I sort of would like to revisit them. Yeah.
I would, myself, I'm similar to you. You can only do so much. Mm-hmm. Although I did read a great piece on Harold Ramis, but partly because I've just become more and more of a fan, and I was digging for an old quote. It wasn't quite the quote, but it was just a great profile of Harold Ramis. Mm-hmm. And because he's, out of all these folks, he's the only one that gives us a clear link to SCTV.
Yes.
Which kind of blows my mind. That's the only bit of overlap in this kind of storyline, and when we're talking about Strange Brew and all that stuff. But it could be, you could almost say SCTV is the best, variety comedy show you never heard of. But where was I going with that? Oh yeah, research. I you know what? I rented Caddyshack because partly I had some really positive, and the Animal House is on Netflix, but I did rent Caddyshack because I had some positive vibes, and I was like, and Jim, I'm kind of kicking myself now. It's like a third of the way through, and I'm like, oh, this should have been one of our Does It Hold Up? No. Where I could resoundingly say, it does not hold up.
That's Caddyshack.
It's super dated. Some of its humor is borderline, like right on the cusp of, like it might have even been slightly offensive then. Like now it's like, oh, that's so... I mean, I was never a big Rodney Dangerfield fan, but I kind of got how he was like a taste for some comics of that era. Yeah. Like he was apparently like a well-known comic, but in that scene, not ever like a movie star until Caddyshack. Caddyshack really, and it was just because these funny people, it's like, oh, we got to get Rodney Dangerfield. Because it's such a fascinating scene to me that these comedy people, although they're insecure and competitive and all that, I find them to be way more interested in, oh, he's just so funny, we should do something with him. Whereas actors, they're a lot more, I'm not saying they don't like working with each other, but they're
competitive.
Well, not competitive. Like, well, maybe I don't know. You know what? There's
something where that it's comedy.
I just so wanted to work with you, and it's like, well, you could have made that happen.
Is it didn't. That comedy is more of a brotherhood rather than sort of your straight actor?
I'm wondering if some of it is that, and this is just me thinking out loud, that comics are forever writing their own stuff anyway.
Yeah.
Which is why, it's why comics can love improv actors, why sitcom actors and comics get along, because it's really comics, like stand-up comics, comic writers, sitcom actors, people who have had a lot of experience with that. They're basically vaudeville performers, even if they end up being in feature film, they're still so many of them. Look at all these, like Alison Brie, I think actually is kind of a genius.
Yeah.
But all those folks who've been on Community have such a positive, like what they learned as actors and working together and riffing on each other and all that stuff, how much, that's like, and how much they love Troy, Mr.
Glover.
Yeah. I find that's, I think there's something about having to write an improv and that brings these people together in a way. And partly, because what's improv? If you've got a stiff, if you can't get anything from them, it's a shitty scene where everyone looks like crap.
Yeah, I
have spoken as a person who's taken 3 adult evening classes at Prairie Theater Exchange.
Give me a space. I heard gas station. Thank
you, Ahmed.
Jim Carrey was on CBC because he's hawking a book that he's written. But he had some I just heard it last week, and he had some very nice things. Apparently, he and Rodney Dangerfield were very close, and Rodney Dangerfield liked Jim Carrey's dad a lot. Yeah,
I'm looking at you on the screen. Really?
Yeah. He sort of took him under his wing. I can add a link to the YouTube thing here, but the other one too.
Do it, baby.
In terms of Harold Ramis, who passed away a few years ago, there was a really great piece. I believe it was written by the guy who plays Ned in Groundhog Day, because Harold Ramis, of course, directed Groundhog Day. And Ned, who's played by a character actor, Stephen Tobolowsky, I believe he pronounced his name.
Yeah, the one who's always the foot in the pit, pothole.
He's got a hat, yeah, and then
And
Bill Murray eventually punches
Bill
him.
Murray's brother, and I never knew that was his brother, but Bill Murray's brother is the town mayor.
Brian Doyle
that.
Murray.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah,
never
okay.
knew that was his brother.
He was
Sorry.
referenced in
Yeah.
this movie actually as well, but I'm not sure if he had any speaking lines. But anyway, the Stephen Tobolowsky actually wrote a really touching piece on the things that he learned from Harold Ramis. I think it was in Slate magazine. But if you look up those two things, and again, I'll add it to your Jim and Rob's reading list at the end of this, it was really, I remember
that's just a good idea, Jim.
reading it when he passed
That really
away.
is a good idea.
Yeah.
Go ahead, yeah.
I just thought of it. Anyway.
He's a genius, everybody.
One more thing.
Mr. Jim Chliboyko. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So the other thing, just going back to that Netflix question, I guess I gave a pretty wishy-washy answer to it, but I'm thinking now that maybe we should make a chart and then talk about it at a later time, because because Scorsese's done a movie and Spike Lee's done a movie, and then this was made, and Old Guard, and so in terms
Marriage Story, which was like an already
Roma, which and it's all over the place, really. So it's I think I'm going to have to chart this out and sort of figure something a little more detailed out rather than I don't know. But the other thing I was going to say, I'm not sure if it's a new feature or not. I was watching the end of the movie, and not that I'm trying to recreate the movie experience, but I like the final few songs, as the credits roll. It's all part of the mood. It's going while you're walking out of the theater. Remember those things, theaters? As you're leaving the theater. If you've ever been to a Pops concert, or where they say the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra at the movies, they'll the guest conductor sometimes talks about the songs that rolled during the credits, that they couldn't fit them in, that it was that it was a really had some neat phrases, or had a whole different treatment or something. Yeah. So it's not always super memorable. I think the Crash Test Dummies had a closing, or was Peter Pumpkinhead during Dumb and Dumber? I can't remember. Anyway, but I like the closing credits. I like watching the credits roll. I like reading them sometimes. I like the music. And Netflix put me onto this like immediately. It had about 30 seconds of a song, and then it went right to that new Catherine Langford show about witches cursed.
Oh yeah, you gotta rush to click. If you're not there, you gotta rush to click to watch the credits, which drives me up the fucking wall. Pardon my.
I know it's not a great feature. I mean, it's
for fuck's sakes.
It sort of treats us like content watching machines. Like, I've just finished this. You might
mind you, that is the key thing. They want you to keep watching, right? YouTube, all of them. It's like, how do we keep you there? Mm-hmm. I got a couple other kind of thoughts I wanted to ask you, Jim. What did you? Whoops, I did not want the solo to be on me because what did you think of? No, this was it actually. This is something I thought of before that I even watched the movie. I was like, partly because this. I can't say it happened. Well, no, it did happen to me. But I want to know, have you ever watch a movie and then you watch a review of it? I have watched some reviews after The Old Guard, about The Old Guard, and I'm like, I'm pretty confident in my position. But recently, I saw a review about a different movie, and I ended up, maybe I didn't change my mind about it, but I saw their point, and all of a sudden the movie got kind of maybe tainted a little. Has that ever happened to you?
Where you liked it and then somebody said something and it made you change your mind to the negative, or
tainted.
Yeah.
Tainted, Jim.
Yeah.
Tainted.
Yeah, excuse me, you really have to, and one thing I've learned, it's really, I always sort of believe, and I don't always practice this, and just sort of sticking to what you like what you like, and sometimes there's a movie that you want to like and you don't like, that you may sort of talk yourself into liking. That's another one, sort of similar experience where you feel, I'm going to like this movie. It's going to be so good. For instance, when I was tree planting back in 1989, I was so looking forward to Batman, because that was the first with the, with
like the
Jack
Tim Burton
Nicholson.
Batman.
Yeah. And we finally went into town after a pretty grueling week, and with just limping into Prince George.
Tree planting.
And
not even a good, well, okay, this is a terrible cheap shot on Prince George, but it's a pulp mill town, and it has that pulp mill aroma.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yes, you limp into town,
and we went to see it, and I was just like, I really didn't like it. I liked the second one with Pfeiffer and Danny DeVito in that in the sort of the bigger story. I think Christopher Walken was in that one too, but I didn't love the first one. I thought it was a lot of sizzle and not a lot of steak, as they say. But so, yeah, has there been a review that made me rethink? I always learn the lesson that I have to stick to my guns, whether I do or not. If you like a movie, but that's a good question, actually.
Well, let me describe the scenario, and then maybe we're talking about The Gentleman, which is also playing on Netflix. I really liked the movie. Now, I just thought it had a kind of cool vibe.
The Guy Ritchie thing?
Yeah, Guy Ritchie.
Yes. Okay, yeah.
Guy Ritchie, Matthew McConaughey.
Hugh Grant.
Hugh Grant, who delivers.
Yeah.
But I saw, that Kermode guy, BBC movie reviewer, Kermode Mail, and I saw his review, and I was like, I might not be able to watch it again, because now some of it is, yes, I'm always, even myself, I'm like these people are piece of, criminals. They're not, all this kind of smooth and, a code and, we're all just, it's like, no, they're criminals and people die and even if we're just talking about marijuana, and then some of it is almost Shakespearean, literally. And near the end, there's actually a Shakespearean reference about a pound of flesh. And interestingly enough, I think the guy is Jewish, so there's, oh my goodness, now I may have to familiarize myself with the Merchant of Venice, because there may have actually been a lot of Merchant of Venice references that I'm only now picking up on. Yeah. Which also kind of goes, okay, is that creepily racist? And at the same time, are you being really smart? Oh, damn it. But anyway, the Kermode really did a great job of, and this is more just talking about his own personal taste, but it changed the way I viewed the movie and viewed my own experience of the movie, because he was saying it's really Dean Street, and what he was really kind of knocking is the Guy Ritchie's films. He really kind of tries to create an affectation of these criminals and the way they speak and the way they dress and the way Kermode looks at it. I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. The way he looks at it. What's that?
I think you are, yeah.
Yeah, okay. The way he looks at it, it's like, well, that's what these, these creative types who, are having wine and beer tastings on Dean Street, this, which is some creative, graphic designers and advertising creatives, the creative class. Some Groucho, the Groucho Club, he's very, very London hipstery kind of stuff, and he's like, it just sounds like them and what they think these criminals are, and they're criminals, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, but I kind of liked that. But now I'm actually gonna watch it again. Because partly now I'm like kind of, oh my goodness, did I stumble into some other references? And it's still a good movie. I can still say this, Jim. It's a good movie. Well structured, It's properly structured. It's got a beginning, middle, and end. No one's phoning in their performances. It's shot well. Like, yeah, like in those, is it a good movie? Yes, it is. Does it have problems because it is glorifying? Like, I think there are some films where you kind of go, okay, I have to I have to be aware of certain things it's doing to be aware of, so that I'm not just totally buying in. But, we talked about it before. Yeah, of course I'm on Team Cap. But, yeah, no, in the real world, it's no, not Team Cap. Elected government, yeah, you don't have, because you know what the real Team Cap is doing? He's like that guy taking full on baseball bat swings on some truly peaceful protester in Portland when they're not just whisking kids off the street. So like you got to kind of qualify it. And yeah. So that was more what I was going after. I mean, criticizing Guy Ritchie for having. Sorry about that.
No,
my apologies.
Criticizing.
I even have a dial where I could have just cut my volume out for a bit.
But criticizing Guy Ritchie for having colorful criminals is sort of like criticizing, Wes Anderson for, for having intricate sets. It's what he does, and
it's his thing.
Whether it's a hipster notion or what, it's in a way you sort of can't question the main. You can question how they do things and how they go about it and how they tell it, but you can't really question the notion of what it is, because that's the engine that drives it, isn't it?
Oh, excuse me. I'm wondering, and maybe I'm gonna have to watch the movie, refamiliarize myself with The Merchant of Venice, and even watch the review again.
Watch them side by side.
Triple. I'll do a live stream of me reacting to the review, but I'm wondering if, because I like reviewers with an opinion. I like reviewers and I do actually like reviewers who are challenging my opinion on, it's like, hey, I think this is good. And then but I'm, part of it is I want to give him, give him the benefit of the doubt, because I do, if memory serves, I think he was describing it as, I just don't like this kind of, that Dean Street, that Groucho Club, that,
I should,
I have looked at, Badland's a great example. It's like, I'm not a Western guy, and it didn't convince me to be a Western guy.
Yeah.
I can still judge it as I, what I thought. I was like, actually, it had some. It was not bad at all. Like it has something positive to. It represented its genre well. As a movie, it was pretty good. It was not a failure in any way as a movie. A moderate success.
Sort of reminds me of the of when Richard Roper, the one that used to be paired with Ebert until the end, and they were reviewing the first Lord of the Rings, and he said he didn't like it, and then he liked the other two. So it's just like he said, like, it's too fantastical, or I can't remember what he said, but it's just like it is, as far as that goes, it is what it is. You can criticize a lot of other things, but
Well, and I think that's I didn't like it. Well, review the movie anyway, dip. That's part of the. And I do think though, and now I'm gonna have to watch the review again. And but
let me just add a little story, and I don't have all the details down here, but years and years ago, I think it was the John Candy movie, The Great Outdoors. And there was a local guy in Winnipeg here.
Wow.
There's a local critic in Winnipeg, and he reviewed the movie, and he went to see it, and he reviewed the movie, and he gave it. He went the opposite way, but he gave it 5 stars or 10 stars or 2 thumbs up or whatever he gave it.
I was saying, there's a deep cut, Jim, but
yeah. So but no, I remember this because I used to be I used to read all the movie reviews. So he gave it just a rave review, And then about 2 weeks later, he published another review, and he said, I might get some of the details wrong here, but he said, I was having a really great day. I just had been to the beach and done this and gone into this movie and really was on a high, and I really liked it. Then I had the chance to see it again, and I realized how bad it was. And so he actually published 2 reviews for the same movie.
Well, okay. Now, mind you, I was going to say, it's like, did you realize you praised it before? But apparently you did.
Yeah.
Although I got to admit, I'm kind of guessing who it is.
Was it? I don't think it was Morley Walker.
Like, I want to say it was Randall King. Sounds like a Randall King review.
Was he doing that like 25 years ago though, or even longer?
Well, it couldn't have been Bartley Kivas. I don't think he ever reviewed movies.
Great Outdoors, I think, was like 88 or 87 or something like that. But anyway, I could maybe look it up one of these days when the libraries reopen. Hit the microfiche, and
I think even at the library you'll be able to just. It up nowadays, but if you are getting microfiche out, Jim, we better have pictures, maybe in a little vlog, so we can put it up on the show.
Expand the empire.
I found this reference to this mediocre late 80s movie, one of the last, not the last, tragically not the last movie John Candy did, because he certainly made his fair share of you-know-what. Here's some quick tidbits I did, like when I was doing my own little research. I read Henry Beard's Wikipedia page because I'm like, I gotta know more about this person, right? Like we do, right? You know, it's like I'm doing my best not to watch it, to read it during the movie I'm watching. I'll just pause quickly. I've stopped doing that.
Yeah,
but I'm watching this, I'm reading this, and I'm like, well, first of all, I thought, so Harold Ramis had a very famous falling out with Bill Murray. And Bill Murray kind of known to be a mercurial hole, and so it sounds, all reports are that it's like, Bill was being Bill and whatever it was. But it seemed like, and we're talking decades later, Harold Ramis being interviewed, and there's still kind of boy, I wish we could be the friends we were. Mm-hmm. And Bill Murray, I can't do it. And I first thought because I just watched this movie and I'm reading up and I'm like, wow, Henry Beard and there's a lot of similarities between Ramis and Bill Murray, because it's one piece I was reading where people were saying, I don't know why he keeps kissing his ass. Bill Murray should be kissing Harold's because his whole film career, is based on Harold Ramis's writing and everything. Yeah. But that they had a comedy dynamic, to quote, and actually, you know what? If I have it here... Damn it. A great quote that I actually physically wrote down, and now it's nowhere to be seen. It's just a brilliant bit. Wow, this thing just doesn't want to... Oh, never mind. But anyway, like they had Bill Murray was the guy willing to take risks. Yeah. Like, just do anything to go to you know what, that baseball player that'll slide, take the leap and slide to get the guy out. Whereas Harold Ramis, a lot more cerebral and thinking about it. And it just wasn't his thing, looking like an idiot on stage. Even though, I wish I had a quarter of the on-stage chops the guy has or had. But they really did, like, Harold's that kind of, what do you think? And Harold, that will work. And Bill Murray was let's just do it, something crazy. And I saw a similar relationship between Henry Beard and Doug Kenney, except that in that personal interdynamic, Bill Murray apparently needs no one. except when he's crashing other people's weddings and, looking cool. But, there's a guy, a confident dick, whereas Kenny and Henry Beard, unlike Harold Ramis, Henry Beard, is kind of like, no, I'm going to take my check. I just got $3 million. And I don't need this shit. These people, all these writers are assholes. And yes, we're good friends, but you're my friend, but I'm not. We're not work married anymore. And I just thought that was kind of a weird mirrors and similarities.
Yeah. Oh, this movie, I'm sure has filled. It's based on a book that was written about 14 years ago, and I don't know how closely it adheres to the book, but I'm sure there's tons of stuff that we missed on. There's tons of Easter eggs. I think I was trying to. They have that one thing that all the things in the movie got wrong.
Deep cut. I didn't do it in the synopsis because I was trying to get it down under 3 minutes. Yeah. But there's when he's telling his parents, "Oh yeah, no, I'm about to apply. I just need a pencil. Yeah. As soon as I get a pencil and some paper, I'll apply." It's like, Jesus. People now are still doing the throw the pencils at the, I need a pencil.
And there's a couple of, even in the yearbook, I think one of the pictures was PJ O'Rourke, like the actual PJ O'Rourke, and there was a few others. I'm pretty sure that there was one woman whose name was Spermatozoa in the yearbook, and I'm pretty sure that's not her name. But anyway. Yeah.
Oh, all those little subtle references.
Oh, tons of Easter eggs, I'm sure. I just didn't have a chance to research them.
And like so many people, is Jelly Duck's comment, you couldn't agree with you anymore. Like, you're absolutely right, Ahmed. But it's interesting. Bill Murray, really, a comedy great. Many and a late career that really has he's reinvented himself and his public persona and in his acting craft, and it's reasonable to give him like 2 seconds on the screen because every comedy great of this time connected with this guy and these people and this scene. You couldn't, and the fact that they went for more of the writers and a little less of the glamour, like, again, Chevy Chase is like, he was a friend. Like, so they're like, well, we're giving Chevy Chase time. Like, they're not doing that. Like, again, I think kind of speaks to, I think what a lot of the heart in this film is that there's this guy that these people, like, he still has a wonderful people reputation, and all these people are willing to talk about him and want to, be part of this, telling this story, not doing the standard Hollywood, hey, how many famous people can we stuff in here?
Yeah.
And then, Martin Mull was even a nice touch. With a few people still alive, that's like part of that era.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we just lost Fred Willard, and it's so that's it was fun. I quite liked it.
Yeah. Well, on that note, before I can't believe, Jim, we have not begged for a like.
Oh yes,
a subscribe. Although we're certainly running low on our wonderful fans who stick with us, and then of course ring that bell. So let's circle back to the smash that like button, baby. Jim, any last thoughts? Is there anything you want to add before we talk about next week's show, which is an important one because it looks like we're going to do something else the same again. But anything you want to add right now?
I think we covered it. I'm just looking at my notes here. It's fun.
Recommend, worth.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And especially if you're familiar with some of the backstory and or some of the shows and references. It's quite good. The Matt, the sort of the father figure who bankrolls it, he just passed away at 93 this past April. So that's kind of an interesting thing. I looked that up, but really, it filled in some blanks for me. I didn't know tons about Doug Kenney, and now I do.
Ahmed, stick around for a bit. We're gonna wrap up in a second, but you want to know what we're doing next week? Jim, I agree 100%. I'm even having a hard time imagining who I couldn't recommend this to. It really does. It's really just it is a sweetness, even though it's a tragic. Yeah, it's got a tragic end. He is a tragic figure. But the way they handle it, you know what? In some ways, it's like a second great celebration of life funeral. You know what? Yes, you can almost see people involved, not the actual people, like one of the writers. He's our age, but you could imagine people. Probably why that long list of thank yous of all his contemporaries was like this is like a public celebration of life. You know what? We're not gonna shy away. You too, Jelly Duck. Thank you so much for joining us. You are the man.
Wear sunscreen and a hat. They're not gonna not acknowledge, the mental illness and but they're definitely kind of go, no, we're, you know what, this is not an expose. Yeah. This is not let's dig up the really grimy stuff. Like even New York City, it's like, wow, there was that pop culture image of New York City in the 70s that's also like the other extreme, but it's like, wow, that's one clean town. Are we 100% sure it was like that? Watch the 7-Up.
That we only saw cocaine in 1978. I'm like, well, finally. Yeah. So, I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. Like it did. It had that's what I liked. It had a sweetness to this. I do think that there's a potentially darker kind of, I hope this isn't just a bros going, there's a time when it was just us affluent, well-born white men who kind of ran this show. We were the ones changing everything.
And nobody was bugging us.
And nobody was bugging us.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know why, like almost like a Seinfeld thing, except for the Harvard educated, because I do think Seinfeld, it's like sometimes it's like, oh, buddy, why how can you be mad about anything? Just, Anyway, that's for another show. All right. Well, folks, again, thank you all very much for joining us. It's fascinating, Jim. We've actually, we're coming up on our hour. We have gone longer than the movie again.
Wait till we cover The Irishman.
That would involve me actually watching it for 3+ hours, and I don't see that happening. But
summer.
Listen, folks.
Next week.
Next week. What are we doing next week that might be a little different?
Does it hold up?
Does it hold up? That's right, folks. We're going to be taking a look at a movie that Jim and I, and I'm sure a few others out there, enjoyed when it first came out in the 1980. I want to say 1983, or was it 82?
Saw it in the theater.
Yeah, saw it in the theater. Thought it was awesome in the theater. Let's see. Bear with me.
Yeah.
1981. That came out in 1981. God. So I was 14. How old were you, Jim?
I was 12 going on 13. No, 13 going on 14.
Okay, well, Jim,
my stepmom took me.
I've got here. Let's. Richard. I'm gonna put a pin in this. But Jim, I am now ready to hit the card, but you announce it. What are we gonna check and see if we're gonna watch it again? Sure. We loved it in 1981. Sure. We loved it almost 40 years ago. Does it hold up? What are we looking at?
The Road Warrior.
That's right, everybody. Pre-anti-Semitic, crazy conservative Catholic Mel Gibson.
You let that steep a little.
And what, I don't know, it looks like Jelly Duck is gone, but in other markets, I found out as I was looking up for posters and that so we could do our thing, Jim. It's, in other markets, it was called Mad Max 2. I've only known it as The Road Warrior.
Yeah, oh, yeah, okay,
you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what we're looking at next week. Richard, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the movie and the show.
Yeah, thanks.
Happy. Thank you all for coming by, checking out the show, enjoying it with us. And next week, same time, 9:30 Central Daylight Time, North America, UTC, Universal Time Code offset -5.
Good one.
Next week, Monday, July 27th, again, 9:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time in North America. We'll be here. And so I think, bear with me, folks. I'm going to throw back up our next week's thing. I'm going to take Richard's lovely compliment off. And I think it's, Jim, is it time to cue the outro?
It is. Good night, folks.
All right. I'm putting it up.
I've been in your